This time, Johnny brought me a box full of old drill bits and challenged me once again. Could I turn them into something truly amazing? Of course, I simply couldn't say no to a challenge like that. First, I cut every drill bit into pieces about 2 to 3 centimeters long. Then I welded together a small metal container to hold them. I started by adding a layer of steel and nickel powder to the bottom of the container. After spreading it evenly, I packed the cut drill bit pieces inside as tightly as possible. To eliminate every empty space, I gradually added more steel powder while compacting everything inside the container. Once it was completely full, I added a little borax to help drive the oxygen out during heating. Then I sealed the container shut with a welder and drilled a small 3mm vent hole so the gases could escape. After that, I fired up my charcoal forge, heated it well, and buried the container deep in the hot coals. Once it became red hot, I slowly began forging it. I carefully hammered every side of the container, making sure the material inside fused into one solid billet. Since I don't use a hydraulic press and do everything by hand with nothing but a hammer, this part took much longer. After about 3 hours, I let the container cool, cut off one end with an angle grinder sliced along the side, and peeled away the outer container steel. What remained was a solid billet with the drill bits completely fused together. Now it was time to forge the blade itself. I heated the billet again, forged it longer, and flattened it down to roughly 5mm thick. Then I forged the tang, shaped the point, and carefully thinned the cutting edge. By the end of the day, I had the rough blade forged, but there was still a lot of work left. The next morning, I moved to the belt grinder. First, I corrected the uneven contours until the blade matched the shape I had planned. Then I refined and leveled both sides to remove the remaining hammer marks. Once the profile was finished, I moved on to the most important stage, grinding the bevels on the belt grinder. Several hours later, the bevels were finally complete. I sanded the blade to 150 grit and fired up the forge once again. I heated the blade to approximately 850 degrees Celsius and quickly quenched it in oil. Then I resumed sanding from 150 grit and worked all the way up to 2000 grit. This sanding process took the entire day. On the third day, I thoroughly cleaned the blade, removed every trace of oil, and placed it into ferric chloride for several minutes. The beautiful drill bit pattern finally appeared across the surface of the blade. Now it was time for the handle. First, I prepared the brass for the bolster. I cut a brass plate, drilled it to size, and cleaned the opening with a file. Then I took a piece of walnut wood and drilled it to the correct size as well. Using epoxy, I glued the knife, the brass bolster. The next day, when the glue had fully cured, I started shaping the handle on the belt grinder. I removed the excess wood and created the main handle contours. Now it was time for hand sanding. I sanded the wood up to 320 grit and applied protective wax so the handle would not absorb moisture or get damaged in the future. Finally, I sharpened the blade up to 4000 grit, and it is truly razor sharp. And this is the final result. If you think I won this challenge again, then like this video and subscribe to the channel.